Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli, and I'm smiling. As you saw maybe on my last video, for those of you who saw it, I've been dealing with depression, but generally pretty well. And I also am a fortunate person enough to find happiness when it comes and latch onto it. And I'm happy right now because I've been kind of floundering on this channel, as you guys have seen. I've been talking about my trip to Estes Park and my friendship with Troy, and a lot about my father and what's going on. That's the primary event in my life right now, but my father gave me a gift this morning, and it was something to opine on. It's something that the title of this video will probably get more than my usual 2 or 3 views. Maybe I'll be all the way up in the double digits, maybe even the triple digits. It's something to talk about, something to opine about. The Cleveland Indians are changing their name to the Cleveland Guardians, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. A lot of people will think it's a bad thing. Our traditions are going away. Yeah, our racist, stupid traditions are going away. So of course my father called me this morning. He goes, "You heard about this shit?" No, I haven't. What's the shit I should hear about, Dad? And he told me Cleveland Indians are changing their name to Cleveland Guardians. I go, who cares? What's the big deal? Who's it hurting? Who's it hurting? If there are people that are offended by that name, that are of that descent, like when I always find it kind of funny when white people get offended by that. I'm like, it doesn't really affect me. It's almost like the abortion issue. It's like I have a voice in it, and I'm pro-choice, but in the end, it's really not up. It's not my fight, right? I can't have a baby, and I am not of Native American descent, so it's really not for me to discuss. However, being on the side of the little guy or the woman or the person of color or the person that gets shat upon often in this wonderful country we call America, I'm fine with it. Like, I got a little more inside information. I brought Catitude, but I may have a different view on this than a lot of people, just because I lived in Cleveland for 3.5 years, from middle of 1996 to January of 2000. I lived there. I even wore a hat that had Chief Wahoo on it, and I'll talk about him in a minute. But while I was there, the Cleveland Indians were a really good baseball team. They went to the World Series in '97, where they subsequently lost to the Florida Marlins in 7 games. It's heartbreaking. I had fallen in love with the team quickly. I don't even care about baseball, but they're a very likable team. They had one of the best outfields, I would argue, ever in the history of the game. They had Albert Bell, Manny Ramirez, and Kenny Lofton was their outfield. Hello. Geez, they had a good pitching staff. They had other good players, Roberto and Sandy Alomar, Jim Tomei on first base, Omar Vizquel or at shortstop. I don't know why I remember this, because like I said, I usually don't care about baseball, but it was electric there. Late 90s were a fun time. They also lost in 95 to the Atlanta Braves about a year and a half before I arrived in Cleveland, myself and Dylan, right as we were getting married in 1996. Anyway, back to the task at hand, which is opining about this change. I think it's fine. It looks like they're keeping the symbology generally the same, and that was more of the issue, I think. I don't think in the name Indians was that big of a deal, but if you've ever seen Chief Wahoo, oh my God. And early versions, like back in the 40s and 50s, when the Indians have been a team a very long time. So most of us know the Chief Wahoo, the red-faced, big white grin, one feather, that guy. I had that hat for a while. Culturally insensitive, probably. I literally just did comedy for a friend last Saturday. His name's Derek, and he is a black man, and he had a Chief Wahoo Cleveland Indians hat on. Is it more culturally insensitive, or is it there's a weird irony there when a person of color like Derek wears it? He's a black man wearing an Indians hat. It was weird. I asked him if he was from Cleveland, and he said, "Oh, well, I own some property there," which made it even more ironic, considering property ownership and the theft of this land from its native peoples and the building of its land on every other color of people. Anyway, getting a little too political about it, but my dad was like, "What are they going to do next? What are they going to do next? Just call every city the New York football team, the Denver football team? Who cares, right?" Because he asked about the Redskins, and it's funny because if you can't see how Redskins is offensive, then you probably shouldn't listen to the remaining 5 minutes of this, because if you can't see that, then you're not seeing at all. And I love the symbology of that too. I love the symbol that the Native American. The feathers on the helmet, I love the colors that just felt very Native American. The maroon and mustard, or whatever that they call it. I've always loved the Redskins and the look, but if people are offended by it, the people that are being represented, quote unquote, are offended by it, just don't do it. They have, last I saw, the Redskins are still calling themselves the Washington football team, so that's a thing. I saw it bandied about that they were thinking of calling them the Red Tails, which I believe was like an all African American Air Force unit, I believe, or something in World War II, and they were gonna stick with the same colors, the gold and the maroon. It looks like I said earlier, the Cleveland Indians will keep their colors, and it looked like they hadn't used Chief Wahoo in a while. They just had the C on the front, and there's an argument there that I could see where people are like, when it comes to Indians, there's AIM, the American Indian Movement. I mean, literally, Native Americans are calling themselves Indians because they've been called Indians for so long. But if they don't want team names to use that naming or symbology, then let's just let them have it. Why? They're a vast minority, true, but why do you care? Why do I care? I don't. I went to several games when I was there in the late 90s because, like I said, they were a hell of a team. And one time, I actually did. It was me doing my stupid little protest. I still went to the game. But when I went there, and there were people protesting the name Indians. There weren't many. There were like a dozen Native American people there just beating on a couple drums and saying, hey, bad name, change it. And I went with I had my Cleveland Indians jersey on. It had a little Chief Wahoo, and I put a piece of electrical tape over an X over his face because I did find that part offensive. The Indian's name I didn't think was a big deal, but so yeah, and a couple guys made comments. Oh, really? And I was like, yeah, really. What are you gonna do? Who cares? It's my shirt on my body. Why do you give a shit? I'd make a little protest. You want to actually have a debate about it? We can debate about it. If you just go, oh, really? Make a fucking argument. And that's the problem with my father. There's no argument because you can't win it. You really can't. There are some argument. I mean, there are some teams out there that have retained those names, and I think this would be the argument if that Cleveland could make to keep a Native American name, make it a tribe, a First Nations tribe that is from that area, whether it's Hopewell or I don't know, a Northwest Indian tribe, maybe represent them, give them some of the funds that your team makes, and that might be a workable plan to use symbology and the naming rights, just like they do with the Florida State Seminoles down in Tallahassee. The Seminoles have given their stamp of approval on that because they make some money through all the sales of merchandise, and I'm not sure exactly how. Maybe ticket sales. I'm not sure exactly, but the Seminoles are fine with it. It's like they were like, hey, we're fine with the symbol on the helmet. We think it's cool. We're fine with you using our tribe name. And they even apparently are okay, because I find this funny. If you watch the beginning of a Florida State Seminoles home game, dude comes out on a horse, white guy, red-faced, and comes out on this horse and takes a flaming spear and throws it right into the symbol at midfield. That's a little weird, because unless the guy's a Seminole, and even if he's a Seminole, that's still a little weird. But usually it's a white guy painted in red face, at least the guys I've seen. It's like, that's not a natural color of skin on your face right now. So, where do we go from here? I think it's going to be an interesting debate, I guess. I don't, like I say, I don't think there's much of an argument. Who cares? It's just a team name. Like I said, everything's going to stay the same. They're going to still be in red and blue. They're going to look fine. And last I checked, they were a pretty decent team. I'd feel kind of bad if they can't. I would love for them to win the World Series as the Indians in their last year of being the Indians. They have not won a World Series since 1954. They choked 5 years ago against the Cubs, but let's be honest, the Cubs needed it even worse. So I would like to see that for them. But honestly, in the end, it doesn't matter. It's just sports. I do think it's a good idea just to name them not after people, just in general. Like Denver, here in Denver, we have names that make sense. We have the Nuggets, we got the Broncos, the Rockies, and the Avalanche. All those things just talk about our natural habitat and what it feels like to live here. And last I checked, animals can't protest, and anyone that would protest for an animal is a nut job. Like, there are people getting upset about the Lions and the Bengals and actually protesting it. They got a problem. But when it comes to people, we should respect, even if it's a vast minority, we should respect them and their view on that. All right, thanks, guys. I know it was a babble, but at least it was timely and, yeah, and topical. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.